our repeat customers have actually accessed the fund. So far, 30.8 billion has been borrowed from this revolving fund. In addition to borrowing, the fund is designed to encourage savings. To date, 1.5 billion has been saved as a mandatory savings, while Kenya shilling 17 million has been saved on a voluntary basis. We have witnessed a phenomenal growth in the number of transactions that currently stand at 43.5 million transactions. The largest number of the times a single customer borrower has borrowed from the fund is about 50 times, indicating strong traction of the Hustlers Fund. To further empower the medium and small enterprises, the government on 1st June 2023 launched the second product of the Financial Inclusion Fund that is aimed at facilitating Kenyan access funding through groups. This follows the phenomenal success of the personal loans products under this initiative, and this will allow lending groups such as chamas and SACCOs and SACCOs. The groups can now borrow loans from between 20,000 shillings to 1 million shillings. Third, we have redesigned the competence-based education curriculum to make it responsive to our education needs. And fourth, I've employed over 30,000 teachers in a historic and unprecedented drive to improve the national teacher-pupil ratio and enhance performance. Fifth, government has introduced a new funding model for higher education that will make the universities and technical training fully inclusive, financially self-sufficient, and also capable of competing with their peers globally while contributing to our national socio-economic transformation. Sixth, the government has established the National Open University in order to make higher education inexpensive, affordable, accessible, inclusive, and attainable to all. The university will create its charter before the end of this month, that is June 2023. Seven, the government has launched several affordable housing projects across the country, translating to about 36,000 housing units in just 8 months. Number 9 is the government has launched a data protection registration system to provide digital identity to all Kenyans in order to facilitate the transactions between the pressing socioeconomic challenges. First, to reverse the effect of the recent past negative shocks that have been persistent. And second, to improve and accelerate the betterment of the livelihoods of Kenyans. In order to facilitate it is for this reason that the government is implementing the bottom-up economic transformation agenda, popularly known, referred to as BETTER, which is geared towards economic turnaround and inclusive growth. Negative shocks it is aligned to this agenda, and second, it is in alignment to this agenda for this year's budget theme carries that spirit. This year's budget, the theme is bottom-up economic transformation and climate change mitigation and adaptation for improved livelihoods of Kenyans. Consistent with this, the government will scale up the implementation of policy priorities and structural reforms under the bottom-up economic transformation agenda, as detailed in the 2023 budget policy statement and the fourth medium-term plan, MTP4, which is currently under development, and that it will guide the attainment of these development objectives, as well as a continuation of the Kenyan Vision 2030 and Sustainable Development Goals. The strategy will involve increasing investments in 5 strategic sectors that have the largest impact and linkages to the economy, as well as on household welfare as the starting point. These 5 sectors include agricultural transformation, micro and small medium enterprise economy, housing and settlement, healthcare and digital superhighway, as well as the creative industry. Special focus will be placed on the interventions that reduce the cost of living, create jobs, achieve more equitable distribution of income, enhance social security, and expand the tax base for more revenues to finance development. And finally, also geared towards increasing foreign exchange to give us flexibility in that market. Mr. Speaker, we intend to implement the policy priorities within sustainable fiscal framework. Overall, we have moderated our spending to ensure the value for money, and enhanced the revenue mobilization efforts to ensure that our public debt remains on a sustainable path. Mr. Speaker, prioritization is critical because resources are scarce, thus limiting our capacity and desire to cover everything at once. In this regard, the budgeting process for the priority programs under the bottom-up economic transformation agenda will be managed through a value chain approach on a sustainable path. This has ensured that the resources located along the value chain are allocated to all the components along the value chain, thereby eliminating duplication of roles, removing any funding gaps, and enhancing efficiency in the use of available budgetary resources. Mr. Speaker, it is now my privilege and honor to present the economic and fiscal policy underpinnings the government's bottom-up economic transformation agenda for improved livelihoods to Kenyans. Thereafter, I will broadly outline the proposed resource allocations, revenue-raising measures that the government will implement in the financial year 2023-2024 budget. But before I proceed to elaborate on programs, let me start by highlighting the economic context in which this budget has been prepared. Let me start with economic policy context and focus on the global economy. Mr. Speaker, the financial year 2023-2024 budget has been prepared against a background of increased uncertainties in the global economic outlook, reflecting continued geopolitical tensions, particularly the ongoing conflict in Eastern Europe, and the pace of monetary policy tightening amidst concerns about financial sector stability in the advanced economies, as a result from 7.6% in 2021 due to adverse impact of the multiple shocks that affected the economy. Kenya's growth in 2022 was supported by growth in the services sector, while the agricultural sector contracted for the second consecutive year due to the prolonged drought effects, but that also contributed to a slowdown in growth of manufacturing sector as well as that of wholesale and retail trade sectors. Mr. Speaker, the economy is expected to rebound and expand by 5.5% in 2023 and the recovery from the agricultural sector due to improved weather conditions during the March-May rainy season. This growth outlook will be reinforced by interventions being implemented by the government under the bottom-up economic transformation agenda that include the provision of subsidized fertilizer and seeds to farmers during the planting season. Further, economic activity is expected to improve and drive aggregate demand expansion as the international community, as international commodity prices is coupled with improved exports and resilient private sector consumption, as well as the ongoing public-private investments. Mr. Speaker, the government will continue to support economic recovery by pursuing prudent macroeconomic policies geared towards reducing debt vulnerabilities and supporting sustainable and inclusive development. Inflation rate has remained above 7.5%, which is the upper bound target since June 2022. And supporting sustainable and mainly this is driven mainly by high food prices and energy prices following the adverse weather conditions and high global oil prices, but also compounded by the pass-through effects from the domestic currency depreciation. In order to anchor inflation expectations, the Central Bank of Kenya, through Monetary Policy Committee, tightened monetary policy during the last 1 year by raising the central bank rate to 9.5% in March 2023 from 7.5% in May 2022. This monetary policy action, together with improved agricultural production occasioned by the long rains and supported by fertilizer subsidy program, and the ongoing importation of key food items, particularly maize, cooking oil, rice, sugar, and a duty-free window, are expected to ease the domestic prices and basic food items. Already, the inflation pressures are easing with inflation rate at 8% in May 2023 from the highs of 9.6% in October 2022. Inflation rate is expected to return to the target range within the second quarter of financial year 2023-2024. Also, in addition, credit to the private sector has grown by 13.2% in the last 12 months to April 2023, and this is supporting economic activity. Most sectors of the economy continue to receive positive credit flows. Mr. Speaker, to further anchor inflation expectations, the Central Bank of Kenya will continue to implement reforms outlined in the white paper on modernization of the monetary policy framework and operations that are aimed at enhancing the effectiveness of monetary policy formulation and implementation to prevent monetary policy falling behind the curve of the country's debt sustainability position. Mr. Speaker, I now turn to the policy priorities of the government for fostering economic transformation and improved livelihoods. The policy priorities and structural reforms for improved livelihoods start with the bottom-up economic transformation agenda. Mr. Speaker, this year's budget places special emphasis on priorities at the bottom-up economic transformation agenda, which is detailed in 2023 budget policy statement that was approved by this House in March 2023. This agenda is premised to address the challenges of the economy is facing, to stimulate economic recovery, bolster resilience, while building on the success realized over time. The strategy will involve increasing investment in at least 5 sectors, envisaged to have the largest impact and leakage to the economy, as well as on household welfare. The priority programs are classified under 2 categories, namely the core pillars and the enablers that aim at the creation of a conducive business environment for socio-economic transformation. Mr. Speaker, as indicated earlier, in this statement, the core pillars include agricultural transformation, micro, small, and medium enterprises of the economy, housing and settlement, for socio-economic healthcare and digital superhighway and creative industries. In order to make this program feasible, the government will implement strategic interventions under the following key enablers. First, the infrastructure, manufacturing, the blue economy, the services sector, the environment and climate change, education and training, women agenda, youth empowerment and development agenda, social protection, sports, culture and arts, as well as the governance. Mr. Speaker, in order to realize the aspirations of the bottom-up economic transformation agenda, the government will first continue to maintain macroeconomic stability and enhance the security to foster and secure conducive business environment for all Kenyans and their investments. Second, the government will intensify national infrastructure development and connectivity of roads and ports, energy and fiber optic infrastructure to lower the cost of movement of people and goods, lower the cost of doing business, thereby enhancing profitability of businesses. Third, the government will enhance investment in key economic sectors for broad-based sustainable economic recovery by promoting agricultural transformation, growth in manufacturing, environmental conservation and water supply, food security, climate change mitigation and adaptation, tourism recovery, and sustainable land use and management. In this regard, food security and climate change will also become focal point for policy formulation going forward. Fourth, the government will expand access to quality social services in health, education, and appropriate social safety nets for the vulnerable population. And finally, the government will support the youth, women, persons living with disabilities through government-funded empowerment programs that leverage on partnership with private sector organizations. Mr. Speaker, the government, under the support of the development partners, is implementing a program that aims at boosting revenue mobilization to reduce total expenditures as a percentage of GDP, thereby providing growth-friendly fiscal consolidation plan designed to slow down the annual growth of public debt and implement an efficient liability management strategy, without at the same time compromising service delivery to citizens. The fiscal consolidation plan targets gradually reduce the fiscal deficit, including grants, from 6.2% of GDP in the financial year 2021-2022 to 5.8% of GDP in the financial year 2022-2023 to 4.4% of GDP in financial year 2023-2024, and further reduce the fiscal gap further to 3.6% in financial year 2025-2026. Mr. Speaker, we are truly grateful as a nation to our development partners who have over the years provided financial resources to support the implementation of government programs, government policy, as well as structural reforms. In particular, allow me to single out the multilateral institutions, specifically the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund, the European Union, the African Development Bank, and the many bilateral donors, institutions, and governments that have walked the journey of socio-economic transformation with Kenya. Mr. Speaker, Kenya has continued to successfully implement the Extended Fund Facility and Extended Credit Facility, EFF and ECF arrangements supported by the IMF, the International Monetary Fund. We concluded the fifth review of the program in May 2023. 2023. And we agreed on the augmentation of access under the program of 75% of the quota, that is SDR, special drawing rights for 407 million.1, or which is about US dollar 44.3 million dollars. An extension of the duration of the ECF arrangement by 10 months to April 2025 to allow sufficient time for meeting the program objectives, and on a new 20-month resilience and sustainability facility (RSF) arrangement that will allow us to access 75% of our quota that will run parallel with the ECF program arrangements until April 2025. Once approved by the IMF Executive Board in July 2023, Kenya will immediately access SDR 306.7 million, which is about $410 million, including from the augmentation of the access under ECF-EFF. This will bring the cumulative IMF financial support disbursed under the EFF-ECF program arrangements to SDR 1.509 billion, or about $2.017 billion. And for us, that's why we are appreciative of this multilateral institution. The government will also access additional SDR 407.1 million, about 443 million under the new 20-month Resilience Sustainability Facility arrangement upon successful next review. Mr. Speaker, when combined with RSF support, the cumulative IMF commitment to Kenya will be about SDR 2.633 billion, which is about $3.52 billion by April 2025. Mr. Speaker, as a stopgap measure to ease the pressure on the domestic supply of petroleum products, as well as ease pressure on the Kenya shilling arising due to the global shortage of US dollars in the domestic market, we have introduced an innovative new government-to-government arrangement for fuel importation through Legal Notice number 3 of 2023. That Legal Notice allows us to import the importation of petroleum products by private sector through the current open tender system, OTS. To date, the monthly importation of petroleum products is approximately 740,000 metric tons, of which 60% is consumed in the domestic market, while 40% is for transit markets in the region. To date, this product is currently paid for using United States dollars, which puts strain on foreign exchange availability and pressure on nominal exchange rate and ensuing exchange rate volatility in the market on a monthly basis. Mr. Speaker, to contain the pressure of the US dollar availability in the market, as well as exchange rate volatility on a monthly basis, the government entered into a memorandum of understanding with governments of oil-producing countries under which framework agreements have been signed with petroleum exporting companies for the supply of petroleum products on extended credit period of 180 days. The objective of this arrangement is first to ease the monthly demand of the US dollars in the foreign exchange market for the supply of petroleum products that is driven by petroleum imports, and by extending time required to source the US dollars from the current 5 days to 180 days. Second, to allow space to activate the interbank foreign exchange market and thus stem currency speculation, it was necessary to enter into this program that we intended to reduce the cost of petroleum products by lowering the economies of leveraging on the economies of scale that arise from having longer supply contracts up to 270 days with potential suppliers. And fourth, we wanted to make sure that we avoid supply disruptions by safeguarding longer-term supply contracts for petroleum products. And finally, it has allowed us to structure, in the future, to structure the fuel pricing mechanism that will be dependent on market conditions. Currently, the fuel pricing mechanism coordinates expectations of price revisions on the 15th day of every month, a situation that does not reflect appropriate market conduct as well as encourage diverse market development paths in this subsector. I now turn to climate change mitigation and adaptation. Mr. Speaker, the climate change has become a pressing issue globally. Like other economies, Kenya's economy is vulnerable to its ravaging impact. I now turn to climate change mitigation. Indeed, we have just come out of the worst drought in 40 years, which has claimed lives of people and livestock, while at the same time threatened the livelihoods of millions of Kenyans. Given our vulnerability to climate change, it is imperative that we build a more climate-resilient economy. For this reason, the government has stepped up climate adaptation and mitigation efforts, including green energy, smart agriculture, decarbonized manufacturing, e-mobility, and green building. All these are aimed at the attainment of zero carbon by 2050. The government has committed to secure our future and to achieve a clearer and safer environment for all Kenyans by reducing greenhouse emissions, halting and reversing deforestation, biodiversity loss, and land degradation. In this regard, issues of climate change, mitigation, and adaptation have been mainstream in all government programs and across all levels of government. As part of drought mitigation measures and the climate adaptation program, the government is implementing a national tree planting campaign, which is championed by His Excellency the President and seeks to enhance our national tree cover from 12% to 30% by year 2032. This will entail planting at least 15 billion trees over that period by His Excellency the President and seeks to enhance our national tree cover from 12% to 30%. Mr. Speaker, climate financing has emerged as a very important means of implementation of climate change and for promoting sustainable development and financial sector development. To enhance financial flows from the Green Climate Fund, GCF, the government will continue to implement National Green Climate Fund strategy, which provides an elaborate framework of coordinating and attracting resources from the Green Climate Fund. The government will also implement financing locally led climate action, we call it FROCA program, in collaboration with county governments and development partners to manage climate risks. Further, to support our climate change efforts and characterize additional climate finance from other official and private partners, we have agreed with IMF on a new 20-month resilience sustainability facility arrangement that will run in parallel with the current program arrangement until April 2025. Mr. Speaker, the government last year committed to fast-track the enactment of disaster risk management bill and finalize the public finance management disaster risk management fund regulations. These are meant to strengthen the disaster risk management in the country, given that Kenya is predisposed to various disasters, some of which are exacerbated by the ravaging effects of climate change. These disasters often have a huge negative impact on the economy. I wish to report that the relevant departmental committee of this House is in the process of considering registration on matters relating to disaster risk management. I urge this House to prioritize this matter to enable Kenya have an overarching framework on disaster risk management. I will later be submitting to this House for consideration the public finance management into brackets the disaster risk management fund regulations 2023 that will enable the establishment of the disaster risk management fund. Let me turn to legal and and policy rigor and institutional reforms. Mr. Speaker, the government's bottom-up economic transformation agenda, BETTER, will be underpinned by sound and appropriate policy rigor and institutional reforms that are aimed at improving the business environment, increasing the efficiency of public service delivery, and strengthening the accountability and transparency in public finance management. These reforms are outlined as follows. First, the procurement reforms. Mr. Speaker, on a continuous basis, the government reviews the procurement policies and procedures to ensure that we achieve efficiency and transparency and enhance good governance and promote savings in the procurement process. This is one critical area that government can achieve efficiency and unlock savings given the limited financial resources and fiscal space. With this in mind, Mr. Speaker, last year, the National Treasury committed to this House to roll out an end-to-end e-government procurement system, EGP, with a pilot phase commencing in July 2022 and a target date for full rollout to all ministries, departments, and agencies in January 2023. I wish to report to this House that the process is still in progress, albeit with some delays. The system will be rolled out by December 2023 to both national and county governments. Once rolled out, all government procurement and asset disposal procedures and processes will be managed online through the system. The system will enhance efficiency and transparency in the procurement and in the procurement functions. The system will also ease cost of doing business with the government and has the capabilities of monitoring and tracking all public procurement and asset disposals. Mr. Speaker, the government remains